awesome.
Yeah, so that's excellent.
All right, I'm just waiting for my production team here to give me a cue. Everything is fine
Yes,
quality wise?
we are live. We are live. Enjoy yourselves.
Oh, fantastic.
Excellent.
Um, all right, so three, two, one. Good morning and good afternoon, Prof. in Tokyo. It's morning here in South Africa, and I'm glad that you could make time to join us. We really appreciate that. I, my guest tonight, or this afternoon rather, is a well-known global AI expert, amongst many other things. So, in true form of that, I was struggling to come up with a proper introduction because everything I tried was too long. Because he's achieved so much, he's accomplished so much. So I went to ChatGPT to say, how would you introduce Prof. Marwala being the AI expert himself? So I really love what it said. So let me just read this. Prof. Chilizi Marwala is an engineer, AI expert, and globally respected academic who has served as a Vice Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg, Rector of the University of the United Nations University in Tokyo, and a UN Under Secretary General. He is one of Africa's foremost minds in the intersection of technology, policy, business, and leadership. Closer to home, he played a pivotal role in shaping Africa's digital future, serving as a deputy chair of South Africa's presidential 4IR Commission and later as a chair of Namibia's 4IR Commission. He has served on various boards like Nedbank, and he's a passionate leader who grows others. Today, he brings that wealth of insights into our conversation, CEO Nights with Nyimbini. His passion for innovation, ethical leadership, and African excellence on a global stage. With that, I'd like to introduce you to my guest and welcome Prof. Marwala.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very excited to be joining this platform. I was just in South Africa only, but for 3 days. And I am hoping that when I come back on a long term basis, which will be in July, we're going
Yeah,
to set up time so that we can talk about where is artificial intelligence going and how do we position ourselves as South Africans so that we do not become victims of this technology, but we become, I don't want to use the word exploiters, but we become people who leverage this technology to deal with
yeah.
some of the pressing challenges that we face as a society.
No, thanks for that, Prof. And I look forward to engaging with you when you're here because there's a lot of layers to really unpack. But just briefly on that before we go into the leadership conversation, because I really want to focus on lessons from you as a leader on how you lead. Our audience are mid-career professionals who are hoping to get to C-suite. They're ambitious young people who are working for some of the big corporates in audit, in banking, in consulting. And we get about 20,000 plus views on this platform. So we talk to accomplished leaders like yourselves to share your journey to help them shape theirs. But we focus more on how you approach the complexity, the diversity, the dichotomy that comes with leadership so that they can get some inspiration and practical tips. But let me just pick up on the 4IR. That where's your sense in where Africa, not just South Africa, is in in embracing and driving what is possible with 4IR from a policy point of view, from a competency point of view, and so on. And I'm asking this because I read one of the surveys from Harvard Business School where they said that in the US, only 7% of execs and boards there have the necessary competency to manage the complexity or the opportunities that 4IR is bringing?
Well, I mean, I think this is a much, much deeper question. And of course, I would like to contextualize it on this very reality that leadership literacy today is not just the ability to read and write and do things traditionally. It is also the ability to handle technology. Because if you are any sophisticated business, you are going to have people that you are going to have to manage, but you are going to have lots of systems. Some of them are physical infrastructure, data centers. Banks are creating their own data centers. Some of them are soft infrastructure, software, whether it's apps, whether it is decision support tools, whether even a word processor today has a co-pilot and it requires some form of advanced literacy levels in technology. And we would call that hybrid leadership. Because you are really leading people and machines at the same time. Unfortunately, to get somebody to be able to do that from the era gone by, you probably will have to go to some manufacturing plant where people will be leading people, but at the same time you have processes and infrastructure that has to be led. But that infrastructure was not intelligent. So it did not have any form of agency. It did not take any decision, Today we are dealing with automation where decisions that will normally be reverted to a human being are being done by machines. And it requires a whole different level of leadership. And I always remind myself of when I was an undergraduate student, and maybe that is not an accident that United States has really led in this technology. I transferred from University of Cape Town to go to do my undergrad in United States. I had just done 6 months, and I remember when I was there and they were telling me that I have to take 12 semesters of human and social science courses.
12.
12.
Wow.
I took 3 acting classes. 3 acting classes. I know Mubango is actually getting out of play, and I can no longer make a play anymore. But the fact that I was not one of the people who are acting is not because I am not talented to do so. It's simply because a matter of choice. Because I really took 3 acting classes.
And I believe you won an award in the US for that, and within the school or something like that. So well done on that, Prof.
And then I took 2 psychology classes. I took 6 economic classes. I took history classes. And today you have a very powerful AI technology called reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning is used in large language models. It was the technology that was used by Google DeepMind when they developed AlphaGo to do the Chinese chess called Go game.
Yes, I remember that famous game where the AI beat the champion.
I always tell my engineering friends that I did not learn about reinforcement learning in an engineering course. I actually learned it in a psychology course. They had this Pavlov, his dogs, he rings the bell, he feeds them, and that is the theory of reinforcement learning. Mr. Sutton, Professor Sutton, who just won a Turing Award, the highest award in computer science today for reinforcement learning, did not invent reinforcement learning. He's an engineer. He did not reinvent it. It was invented by Pavlov. All he did was to take a technology. It was not even a technology. It was just a concept of observing how animals learn and take it into machines. And this whole idea of multidisciplinarity, being able to understand technology at the same time, trying to understand human beings and society is absolutely crucial. And if there is
So,
one legacy that I have at the University of Johannesburg,
yes.
when I was vice chancellor, was to introduce in 2018 and a compulsory artificial intelligence course for all the students, irrespective of what they are studying.
Yes, and Prof, what you're saying is so important because I mean the point is you talk about multidisciplinary and this ecosystem thinking and bringing diversity to sort of problem solving, which we see in business today with these squads and agile team and tribes in a way of working. But do you think the institution of higher learning are moving fast enough in bringing that interdisciplinary learning? Because you have a school of engineering, school of law, school of humanities, yet real life is integrated. Are they starting to do that to bring that level of thinking? Because that's fertile ground for innovation.
No, absolutely. I think the concept of multidisciplinarity, everybody now understands that it is absolutely essential. If
Yeah.
I were to go back to my undergraduate years, I did go back to receive a distinguished alumni award from the university I studied, and I was asking them, do you still require your students to take 12 human and social sciences if they are doing technical areas like engineering? They said, no. I said, why? They said, no, because, they it is expensive. So students can no longer be able to afford to take all these additional courses in addition to what they are taking. So
Yeah.
what they will do, and I've seen it in South Africa, universities of South Africa, in engineering schools are doing that, is they will organize a social and humanity course for engineers. It defeats the purpose because you have engineers sitting together to learn about human and social sciences.
Yeah.
What is actually crucial is to sit and work with people who were trained differently and who think differently so that their ways of tackling things can actually filter into you and you can be able to come up with ideas that normally somebody who has just been exposed to engineering will not be able to come up with. So,
Wow.
in summary,
Yeah.
just to answer your question whether we as Africans are up to the task or not
Yeah.
when it comes to the fourth industrial revolution, the answer is yes and no. Because the fourth industrial revolution needs infrastructure. Infrastructure of data gathering, analysis, and storage.
Yeah.
Such infrastructure, it does exist, but not at the levels in which we would like such infrastructure to be like that. Secondly, the fourth industrial revolution requires people to understand about AI, algorithms, systems thinking. How do you bring things that are otherwise not connected together?
Yeah.
And build a product that you can take to the market and sell, That also does not exist. And then the issue of access to GPUs, NVIDIA chips. We have high performance computing in South Africa. Go to the CSIR, they have high performance computing. They need to really invest in GPUs so that they can be able to do things much quicker. And there are elements of things that are happening. I'll give you an example on AI literacy. Two of my former students, my former master students, Shakir Mohammed, who is a director at Google DeepMind, and Professor Wukosi Mariwate. They were just my master students almost 20 years ago. who is an APSA chair of data science at the University of Pretoria. They founded an organization called Deep Learning Indaba. Impressive organization that has been teaching AI across the 33 African countries, now coming to almost 10 years.
Wow.
You know, these are exciting initiatives that
Yeah.
we had not really seen them outside. Now you see a little bit of that outside the African continent. So those are excellent.
So there's hope. Yeah, there's some bright sparks happening out there and some opportunities coming through.
Absolutely.
Very good. Prof, on a lighter note, you know, one of the things that really fascinate me about you on this multidisciplinary learning is you throw yourself out there to anything. I mean, business, government or policy, academia, and you've done everything from economics, politics, engineering, AI. How do you, what is it about your mindset and even acting that allows yourself to throw yourself into things so broad and so different? And what kind of coaching or lessons can you share to someone who's afraid to get out of their comfort zone?
Well, I suppose my training probably has everything to do with that. My undergraduate training has everything to do with that. I went and did a PhD in AI.
Yeah.
At the University of Cambridge. And when I say AI, I really mean I did a PhD in neural network. So when people talk about deep learning, that is what I did a PhD on. And one thing about AI that people don't realize is that it's a very multidisciplinary field because you start with the human brain. You don't study human brain in engineering, you know. And then, of course, that human brain, you go and observe how does it work. You have neurons firing and so on and so forth. And you go and construct a mathematical model. And that mathematical model is turned into an algorithm. That algorithm is turned into a computer program and it is run and executed on a platform, and you are able to show it an image and it tells you that this is a cat or this is a dog and so on and so forth. Now it is able to even write essays for you, you know.
Yeah.
So that idea itself was quite multidisciplinary, that AI is a tool that can be used in engineering and then it can be used in other areas. How did I get into economics? Of course, I did economic classes as an undergrad, but when I was a professor of electrical engineering at Wits University, there were all these young people who will come, they are engineers, and they will say, no, they want to, the famous one was, I want to predict the stock market.
Of course.
I want to predict the stock market.
To beat Warren Buffett and many more.
Exactly.
Look at rewards.
I think, Gareth Sitter, they did his masters under me on that. You know, Brain Lecker did a master's thesis on that. Lots of people came and and wanted to do that, and of course.
But I'm building on that. These predictive models now they're built on AI tools to predictive models. Yeah. But then was also economics. Yeah, hence it's multidisciplinary. Yeah.
And of course, for me that was very attractive.
Yeah.
Simply because. Data is expensive. Data is absolutely expensive. I mean, I have 5 patents. I'm a co-inventor of 5 patents.
Yes, we read that.
And what I have found is whether it is prediction of dam levels using cameras and so on and so forth. The technology is there, but you need data. And one of the most easily accessible data is actually financial data.
It's in economics. Yeah, absolutely. It's in economics,
You
Statistics.
You can literally go and download the Dow Jones data in the last 50 years.
Yeah.
You can't do that for medical data.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do that for, hopefully you can do that for weather data, but it's not as easily accessible. So we did not want to spend a lot of time, you know.
I get it.
And then they will come and they will do the work and so on and so forth. So I think I think maybe if there is one great lesson that I can draw from that is that, don't be afraid to explore.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to collaborate. I was taken to political
Yeah.
science by Monica Lagazio. She was a professor she was an academic in political science, and she says maybe we can use this AI to predict interstate conflict. I did not know anything about politics, but I knew a lot about AI, and we collaborated. So that is very important that and this collaboration even
Yeah.
becomes more important when we come to large language models. We
Yeah.
are not going to create, an engineer is not going to create a good Chitsonga large language model unless he or she can speak the language,
Yeah.
or he or she is collaborating not just with a speaker of the language, but somebody who has a sophisticated understanding of the linguistics, the
Yes.
structure, the texture, all these issues that are quite crucial to be able to embed spoken language into the digital domain.
Prof, thanks for that. But let me probe a little bit in terms of then what guide you in deciding who to collaborate with or what role opportunity to take. And let me tell you where I'm going with this. So, for example, we read that Nando de Freitas, and I think it was your fellow student or colleague at Cambridge, it was sort of a chance conversation about AI that got you interested. It's like, I'm going to change my PhD and focus on that. It sounds intuitive and unplanned and spontaneous, but I'm sure there was a little bit more thinking towards that. Now, you changed from UJ to UN University. What drives your career decision, or what guides you to say this is the right thing to do or not?
Look, I mean, I think, again, the idea of being embedded in a community, hopefully a diverse community with lots of ideas, is
Yeah.
important for good ideas to come out. I mean, you
Yeah.
mentioned the word Nando de Freitas, excellent AI expert who is a big man at Google DeepMind, former professor of computer science at Oxford University. And why did I pick that subject? I think there was an element of chance because I really wanted to do something that I would not otherwise have been able to do in South Africa. It's quite amazing what you can do in South Africa. You can almost do some of the most sophisticated topics, but there are certain topics that you can't do in South
Yeah.
Africa. You can't do semiconductor engineering in South Africa because it's simply just expensive. And if you do it, you'll do it theoretically. You are not going to have the clean rooms and so on and so forth. Certainly not at a higher scale. Compared to universities such as Stanford and other universities. So I wanted to do something
Yeah.
that was slightly different. Now, I think you are also asking a question. What is that sign that I see for me to be able to make a turn to a particular direction?
Yes.
Making a turn to AI from mechanical engineering, making a turn to international diplomacy from being
Yes.
a vice chancellor of the University of Johannesburg.
Yes.
I think as opportunity seeking is a very important aspect of being a successful leader. You must be able to identify opportunities, and it is not exact science. It is not exact science. You can make mistakes. If you're wise enough, you can minimize the levels of mistakes you're going to make. There is a US president who once said, "Fear nothing but fear itself." So it is quite
Yeah.
important that as professionals, we should always try to do things that sometimes put us a little bit on the edge, so that we are not afraid of taking decisions when decisions have to be taken.
Yes.
Because we are so accustomed to operating in the comfort zone.
Yeah.
that we do not want to take a turn for no other reason except the fact that we are afraid to be afraid.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I think this is quite key.
And on that, Prof, one of the big fears for people, of course, is fear of failure. And yet, there's hardly any success without going through some serious roadblocks. What's your experience around things that had gone horribly wrong or not as planned, and maybe can threaten the path to your career success? How do you bounce back? Because it can deal with talking about psychology, your self-confidence. It can lead to people changing their perception of you, and therefore people are being paralyzed into inaction because they fear that things might go wrong. Yet to innovate, you need to correct as you go at times.
No, I mean, I must confess. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. One of the most challenging things that I've ever done.
Yeah.
It was to try to become a farmer.
Again, yet another career.
I went and bought a farm, a beautiful farm. And I went and bought Bosmara, Bosmara cows and all fantastic things.
Yeah.
And then next to my farm on every Thursday, first Thursday of the month, you go and to a place where you can be able to buy stock at an auction.
Yeah. Hmm.
And we sort of went there, and somebody comes to me and say, did you talk to the vet? I said, why would I talk to a vet? I'm going to buy a stock. He says, no. That's the man who understands what diseases are in which cow. He understands. In fact, and then he added, he says, normally he doubles up as a farmer. He's normally the most successful farmer in town.
Of course.
Oh,
wow.
Then I went and bought goats.
Yeah.
They start dying. So why?
Hey.
Oh, there is something called heavy. What is heavy water? What am I? How am I supposed to know about heavy water? And then they are telling me about some plant that is poisonous that I have. Oh, yeah, completely.
That you had on your farm and so on. Wow. Well, I mean, loss of your investment.
Exactly. I mean, and I said, look, and then it reminded me of engineering. In engineering, and I have worked in prediction, using AI to do prediction. If you are going to predict when a car engine is going to fail, it's an easy problem. Because an engine is actually quite simple. You can even model it using mathematical equations.
Yeah.
If you are going to try to predict whether two countries are going to go to war or not, then you have human behavior. And human behavior is not linear, it's non-linear. In fact, it is erratic. Some decisions we make, not necessarily because we have analyzed the data. It's because last night we went to a party and we were really in a happy mood, and when we woke up, we went and made that decision. Those are not rational things. You know, and that irrationality confuses the things. And then when you come to a farm, you know, you have human behavior, which is how I decide based on who I interact with. You have the ecosystem, what is growing where and when. And none of those things are predictable. There's an element of predictability. There's an element of knowledge that you can be able to gather. There's the element of experience that you probably can gather if you ask somebody who has been operating that farm. And it makes, you know, what I have realized is that when you take technology to the human domain, to societies, to people, to places where you have biological agents, whether they are plants, whether they are animals, and so on and so forth, it becomes very, very complicated. And and I always say that is when the wisdom of my grandmother probably
Yes.
will become much, much more useful than a back propagation algorithm of a neural network AI system.
Wow. And your beautiful grandmother is on the picture there behind you.
Yes, my beautiful grandmother is just
I-
looking after me here
oh, look at that.
and saying, look, saying, and I always say to my team every time I'm tackling a complex problem that if only my grandmother was around, I would get even a better solution to this complex problem. that
Can
I'm
you
solving.
imagine that, Prof? And let me just pick on that because I listened to your powerful speech on acceptance of the honorary doctorate at the University of Pretoria. And a lot of it was centered around your relationship and what you learned from your grandmother. And I want to pick on this thing about perception about education and lack of and uneducated in terms of how much can we learn from indigenous systems or experience or lived experiences or from the elders versus there's someone like you, a highly accomplished academic, but also recognizing what you've learned from who I believe was your uneducated grandmother. But you go on to talk about how even those lessons are actually were engineering lessons without even her being aware, but she was the first engineer that taught you. How do we reconcile the two? I'm asking this because also in my mind, there isn't enough spaces for university in Africa currently, and there's not enough people who make it through. I think it's about 4% in South Africa. Are there alternative ways to also garner skill and knowledge without that having achieved that formal education? Are we missing out on the opportunity or not?
No. I think formal education is important in a modern society. I need to emphasize that. But I also, I mean, we can go. I try to make sense of my grandmother. Was she educated or not? Yes, she was educated. She probably never presented herself to a classroom and was taught about biology and chemical engineering. Somebody taught her how to make maths. Somebody taught her how to make clay pots. Somebody taught her how to trade. She used to trade clay pots, she used to trade meth, she used to trade even tobacco snuff.
Yeah.
So somebody taught her those principles. But if there are things that I can take from her as things that I have learned, I will start with engineering itself. That whole concept of making pots and so on and so forth. Those are powerful engineering lessons that
Yeah.
you never forget, even when you are when your engineering is now being reduced to a mathematical equation. The second thing that she taught me, she actually taught me about complexity. I don't want to reveal people's secrets, but one of our neighbors, I have 4 neighbors, so I cannot be accused of targeting each one of them. But there was one particular one.
There's a 25% chance that we know who that one is. All right.
There's one who used
Proceed.
to come
Yeah.
every morning. She will come, and normally I will still be sleeping and I can overhear them. And she always started with, "Have you heard?" So I had all these complex stories about interactions between people,
Yeah.
fighting within the communities, how
Yeah.
to reconcile disputes, and in the final logical analysis of it, you should say maybe you should sit with them. Have you sat with them?
Wow.
Do you know what and I must confess, when I went to the boardroom, the
Yeah.
questions were almost the same. It's just that instead of my neighbors fighting over grazing spaces,
Yes. It was executives fighting over their different functions, or
different
competitor
functions.
thing,
Exactly.
exactly. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
And by the way, that is why, and I have studied communities, communities that are successful tend to involve their young people into complexities at the youngest age. They take their children to quite sophisticated meetings
Yep.
so that they can be able to hear complex conversations and so on and so forth.
Wow.
Just on a lighter note,
Yes.
I went to my village to Tuni, and I was telling someone and say, look, out of this, if there is one thing that I know who is the father of who in this village.
And Prof, you didn't use AI to find out that. Huh? Just continuing on that lighter note, Prof, we spoke to someone that was in the US with you, and again, there were a few of them, so I won't be accused of revealing the names. But we hear that you're quite fast to acclimatize to new environment. You're actually faster than some of the South Africans that you went there with. And one of the ways is that you try to adapt to the culture, the hip hop culture. And tell me about T Money.
Oh, I know.
And while you're at it, you can give us a rap line or two.
No, you see, I must confess, for me, going overseas was really, really special. I will have to confess. And part of the reason is because I really come from a rural part of South Africa. Doesn't look rural now when you go there, but when I was growing up, it was quite rural. And in many ways, I never visited Johannesburg until when I was 18, and when I was 17. And when I visited Joburg, I was going to London to attend the science fortnight as a winner
Yeah.
of the science Olympiad.
Yeah. While you were at Mbilwi. Yes.
At Mbiri. And
Yes.
then, when I arrived there, I mean, it was all this big world, just at the cusp of the fall of the Berlin Wall. It's the first time I encountered Americans and so on and so forth. So when I arrived in the United States 1 year later, 1.5 years later, I had been around, I've been around, I had been in an aeroplane and so on and so forth. In fact, that individual who told you that when I was going, I sat next to him, and it was the first time he was on an aeroplane, and I told him that he has to hold onto a chair so tightly, otherwise he's going to be floating. And he was obviously quite the belt will take care of that, and you are not going to float unless it is doing a free fall. So look, I mean, when we arrived there, it was in the early 90s. Music was different.
Yeah.
And I was taken by the culture. I was so much taken by the culture that my first picture that I sent to my father, and I had a huge earring on my left hand side, and what I'm told is that my father was. My brother was telling me that my father was like saying, no, something is stuck on the picture, trying to remove the earring. And then my brother says, no, that is, this must be an earring. He says, no, it must be something that is stuck on the picture, and he's trying to wipe the picture to remove whatever is stuck. When it doesn't happen, he says, maybe it is stuck in his ear. And of course, and I think that is it. That it is quite important that we need to be open-minded to learn. The reason why you travel distances is not necessarily because intellectually you are going to learn things that you would not have learned in your own home country.
Yeah.
It is really about learning how other people do things. Some of them will be bad for you. You need to, and it's very easy to be led into temptation.
Yeah.
So it is important that you have the guidance, you have and you have mentors, and I had quite serious mentors. In fact, I can even go as far as saying that I was a PhD student as an undergrad because there was Adeyinka
Wow.
from Nigeria who used to almost always come to my room and will be telling me about what is happening in his lab, will invite me to his lab. And
Wow.
I was not witnessing
Selfless, so selfless. Yeah.
I was not performing any of his experiments, but just those conversations and being in an environment changes you.
Wow. Wow, Prof. And just on that, do you have any tips for our audience around how to pick a mentor? Is it something that you deliberate about or it happens? And how do you position yourself to be a good mentee? Because sometimes you pick a mentor, but that relationship doesn't work as we close.
Now, I always say that for you it starts with you being a mentor. And being a mentor is one of those skills that is often misunderstood. It starts when you are young and you have a younger brother or a younger sister.
True.
You know,
True.
say, don't walk in the middle of the road. Don't walk in the middle of the road. Please pay attention to your studies. I mean, and many of us can probably took that role in our own families, in our own families. When you are a good mentor, you become a good mentee.
Wow.
You become a good mentee.
Yeah.
And to be a good mentor means you must be patient. It means you must be interested. It means you shouldn't be afraid. This concept of positive criticism.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be afraid of saying, look, I don't think this is going to work.
Yeah. True.
You are
Authentic
falling
conversations.
you are falling off the rails. And then, of course, at the other end, when you become a mentor, it can be at the advanced level. For me, I was lucky to have the opportunity of supervising 40 PhDs to completion. Whether it is the CEO of the CSIR, whether it is a senior engineers in Tennessee, patience, interest, and you must love people.
Yeah.
You must love people. You must not be selfish.
Yeah.
And it is always a battle not to be selfish.
Yeah, it's almost like it has to be something that's in you. And I remember one of what I read about you leaving the big brewery was that you don't want to be brewing beer, but you want to brew people. And that just that shift and you connecting with it, it's quite important. Prof, we do have. Oh, by the way, one of the other things I loved listening to some of your interviews is, and I'll say it in my home language, Xitsonga, is this thing of loko ungafambi ulateka makwenu. And you said it in Chivenda in terms of, if you don't travel, you'll marry your sister. So I just love that about just open yourself up to the world and divest in all of that. But in all of this, Prof, you are, and I'm sure you've heard this many times, you're one of the busiest people I know. I don't even know how you do it. With all your travel, I see you meeting presidents and receiving all these dignitaries around the world, and and you've got a family as well, and all of that. And I was like, where does this man get the time? But more importantly, I mean, how do you manage your energy? I mean, it's 5:00 there in Tokyo, and you're looking so fresh. It's like you still have another 8 hours of work ahead of this. I believe you walk 10 kilometers a day or something like that. You walk every day. I've seen you skipping, do the skip, and you're very careful about what you eat. You're pescatarian. But tell me about energy management.
Well, I think it starts with interest. You must be interested in life. You must be interested in wellness. You must be interested in learning. The idea of working, I picked it up when I was at the University of Johannesburg, and I was a vice chancellor of a university with 50,000 students. Is absolutely stressful. And I realized that walking is going to do quite a lot for me. But I realized that walking for 10 kilometers per day actually is a lot of time to
Yeah.
just waste idling. Then I started listening to books,
Audiobooks. Look at that.
audiobooks.
Multitasking.
And then I would be, I must be one of the, audiobooks, one of the biggest customers.
Yeah.
And then I realized that these books are so exciting. I'm going to introduce something called Vice Chancellor's Reading Club. So after I finish a
Yes.
book, I will
Yeah.
convene, I will have an open conversation. Anybody can join about
Yeah.
a book after 50 books. That is when I wrote that book, Leadership
What I
Lessons from
learned,
the
leadership
books.
lessons from books I read. Yeah, wow. Yeah, I love that book.
And I discovered the world that I have never discovered. I learned about
Yeah.
Conrad,
Wow.
Heart of Darkness. I had not even read Things Fall Apart. How can you consider yourself educated if you have not read Things Fall Apart?
Fall Apart,
and
yeah.
you are
Or
an African?
Mindset by Carol Dweck. Wow, amazing, Prof. Wow.
So that was, and then of course, I think you need to integrate whether it is your family life,
Yeah.
whether it is your academic life or professional life. You need to integrate it together.
Yeah, and Prof, and then the hence you're saying, and you quote it often, something like, if you don't read, don't lead.
Yes.
I love
I-
that. I love
I
that.
think-
I mean,
think
Prof, you say
really-
so many things that are so well targeted, sometimes controversial, but whatever it is, you say it, and that's the thing. Be declared. I'm mindful of our time. We've got 3 minutes to the hour. We have invited some special guests who were dying to speak to you, and I wonder if you have time to perhaps take
Yes.
2 questions before we close. And anyone, I can't see the screen, but just unmute and go for the question. Rachel, there you are, and we can see you.
Thank you,
Go for
Anthony.
it.
Good afternoon, Prof.
Sorry, Sarah. Rachel first, and then we come to you.
Thank you, Nipini. Hi, Prof. Marala. My name is Raquel, and I'm also an engineer, busy pursuing my PhD in engineering at the University of Witwatersrand, but I am more interested on the entrepreneurship side. So I was very excited about this conversation today, especially relating to AI and entrepreneurship. So when I think about it is we need to be using AI to solve some of the challenges that we're facing in Africa. And how, I guess my question is, how do you think we can use AI to foster entrepreneurship on a practical level?
Well, I mean that's.
Thank you.
I think this is a complex problem. The first one is, how do you use AI to build businesses? Which obviously you need to understand your customers, and you need to be able to understand AI and be able to know how to build systems that are going to make you meet some of the needs of your customers. But your question is even more complicated, is how do you use AI to stimulate entrepreneurship? You know, and I think for me, entrepreneurship starts with ideas. How do you use AI to generate ideas? How do you use AI to be able to give you some of the issues where you can go and invest in, or you can go and build businesses? And by the way, this is one of the biggest challenges of AI, which is
Yeah.
that everybody is using it. Everybody is using it to do exactly what you have asked to do. And in business, for you to succeed, you need to be able to differentiate yourself. So what we are seeing is that solutions are converging. And for
Yes.
me, I think the people who are going to succeed in the AI age are the people who are going to bring themselves into AI. Because
Yeah.
AI on its own is not a competitive advantage because everybody else is using the same
Has
tools.
access to the same, yeah.
Yeah, so what will be important is how through the way you interact with AI, the way you prompt AI, the way you structure it, uh, how are you differentiated from the next person?
Wow. Absolutely, and it's the same in corporate because a lot of employees are starting to use this AI assistant, copilot, and tools, but and it's available to everyone. So it's about how you interact with it and how you make the judgment in terms of what it tells you. Absolutely. Okay, Sarah, you had a
Thank
question.
you, Prof.
Please open your camera because this is recording. Yeah, go for it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Prof. Great conversation. I am, a fan of your work. Read the book. I don't know if you can see it there.
Closing the gap. Good book. You
Yes,
have good taste, Sarah.
yes. Absolutely been inspired by your work. I run an artificial intelligence company, and we are pushing the agenda of AI adoption across Africa. It's one of the things that I'm truly passionate about, and I am an optimist. I think AI will probably open opportunities for Africa. And one of the things that we do in our business is that we help executives with just the reskilling and the upskilling of their people as we help them with the implementation of their solutions, because we understand that technology without people equipping will not give us the results that we're looking for. How would you be thinking around the leadership of the reskilling and upskilling of our youth in particular? By 2050, we'll have over 2.4 billion youth. How should we as leaders be thinking about how we upskill, reskill, and just around the AI talent on the African continent? What would be your thoughts around that?
Well, I mean, obviously, I would hope that for youth, we will be skilling, that they are not going to, you don't have a youth in Africa that is going to be skilled outside the AI domain from the word go, certainly the literacy part of it. Now, I think the question that you really are asking, which is even more complicated, given the pace of change that is happening, how do we ensure that the youth of Africa are actually up to date with the latest technology, whether it is AI and so on and so forth? And more importantly, how do we make sure that they use it to improve their lives? And of course, it starts with behavior. How do we create a
Guys.
culture of learning? How do we create the culture of learning? Secondly, it comes to the issue of incentives. How do we incentivize them? Some of the incentives might be grants. Some of the incentives must be access to certain software that is not easily available. Some of it might come from the private sector, some of it might come from the public sector, and so on and so forth. And thirdly, it's around the policy space. Are we creating the necessary ecosystems to ensure that once people have the correct behavior and the incentive, they're incentivized to do something, they can be able to go out there and create that company that is going to employ 1,000 people. And that is where we are actually lacking. That is where we are actually lacking. We need to create a culture of risk-taking. We need to create a culture of entrepreneurship. We need to create a a digitally literate culture that is able to understand technology and use it to improve people's lives.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Prof. Prof, I'm going to let you go. I know
Thank
you're
you.
a very busy man, and I'll just ask you for your closing reflection, particularly for young, upcoming future leaders in light of this conversation, who are still building their careers. It's a challenging environment and quite volatile in many ways. We know what's happening globally. And with our challenges on unemployment, instability, slow growing economy, particularly in South Africa, but all of the challenges in the world, what are your closing thoughts as they're managing their impact in their careers and their growth?
Well, for the youth, you live at a time when there are really 4 things that are going to drive your life in the next 50 years. The first one is we are entering the tariff-infected world. Tariffs, very important. The second one, we are living in a world where AI is going to be a dominant feature. AI and other emerging technologies. I shouldn't
Yeah.
just talk about that. Third one, we're living at a time where you are going to see lots of conflicts, and these conflicts are going to be very sophisticated. They might not necessarily be just physical conflict. There might be conflicts around trade. There might be conflicts around borders. There might be conflicts around access, and so on and so forth. And the fourth thing is issues of climate change.
Yeah.
We live in South Africa where South Africa is becoming a desert. You come 100 years from today, it's going to probably not to look too different from the Kalahari Desert.
Wow.
All those issues have opportunities. You need to identify the opportunities so that you can solve all the complex problems that are going to emerge out of this.
Wow.
And I want to end by a very powerful word, by expression by an American thinker. All these things create opportunities. And I want you to understand that the opportunity of a lifetime must be taken within the lifetime of the opportunity. That's not me. That is somebody else who said that. And
Yeah.
I think that's very important. You have to be vigilant. You need to be observant. You need to identify opportunities, and you need to take those opportunities before they expire.
Prof,
Thank you
without
very much.
even
Nakenta.
Inkomo, Prof. Without even using the word you've just said, given all these opportunities, you need to take charge. And that's the title of my book. Thank you so much. Which you and I have taken a picture with. And thank you so much for
Good book.
all the support. And by the way,
Excellent
Prof,
book.
we've just celebrated the 9th reprint of Take Charge. So it's done exceptionally well. So thank you so much for all of your support in this journey at a personal level. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for gracing us with this opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.